30 years ago, I accidentally tuned into the craziest program I've ever seen. It was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episode on Fins and Needles, where the Red and Green Rangers were fighting due to a spell, and they had to overcome a shark monster in order to break that spell. That's my first memory of Power Rangers. And when I saw the giant robot cut the shark monster down to size, that's when I was hooked. Decades later, Power Rangers is still a global phenomenon. I've seen it and it's at its zenith, and I've seen it when it was practically in the gutter. But I've consistently been a fan, through thick and thin. And today, this special has properly paid tribute to this insane yet addictive franchise. Basically, the setup is the original Power Rangers still have their powers, thanks to various reasons, and they ended up having to fight a new version of their original enemy. I'm not going to say how she comes back, but it is very intense. And I'm not spoiling this next part. They lose a team member. Now, Rangers have been injured in the past, and people related to Rangers have had to pay the ultimate sacrifice, but we've never actually seen a Ranger get killed on screen. And for various out-of-universe reasons, the team member they end up losing is Trini, played by Thuy Trang, who passed away in 2001. So they had to find a way to bring her back, only to kill her on screen. And I'm not going to go into detail about how she dies, but I will say it was, for you Trek fans, Star Trek that is, an end worthy of Stovacor. And I'll leave it at that. Basically, the story deals with the fallout of Trini dying and leaving behind a daughter that she was raising on her own. And the search for this new version of Rita, the villain, to thwart whatever plan she's concocted and save the day yet again. Character-wise, the story is brilliant. Writing out the actors who couldn't or wouldn't show up for the reunion in inventive ways, which paid respect to the characters, I should say, and their respective actors. And it deals with the passings of certain actors in a respectful way. This is both a monument to the actors from Power Rangers and the characters they played. As for the members of the team that get the most screen time, of course we get the Blue and Black Rangers once again, and they are done brilliantly by their original actors. I never would have thought, after what happened to David Yost, he'd ever set foot anywhere near a Power Rangers set again, but they honored him. And they turned Zach from a decent, if usually pushed aside character that occasionally got some screen time, and turned him into a key figure in the life of Trini's daughter. And, minor spoiler alert, they made him a senator, although he had to retire in order to take care of the daughter. We get some returning second-generation Rangers, Catherine and Rocky, respectively, reprise their past power. Well, not their original powers, but well, I guess Rocky had the Tyrannosaurus powers for a while, but Catherine never had those powers. Just the ninja powers, and she acquitted herself very well with the classic pterodactyl power. Her relationship to Tommy is referenced, and the fact that they have a kid together. And Rocky still having a tiny bit of comic relief at the end, but he's more than just a filler for Jason's leftover power. The voice actors they got to play Trini, Jason, Kimberly, and Tommy were decent, although I think a couple of them were purposefully slightly different to keep with the tradition of replacement voice actors not being pitch perfect. As for the new Yellow Ranger, Trini's daughter, Min, first she has to deal with loss, and then she has to deal with thoughts of revenge, and coming to terms with the fact that being a Power Ranger isn't about revenge. It's about putting others before yourself. It's a life of service. The original Ranger team were soldiers in a war, basically. And it took them a while, but eventually one of them didn't come home. And many military families know what that's like, to know that their soldier is not coming home. And then to have the next generation decide to become a soldier, but out of thoughts of revenge, that's pretty deep. Her character was fairly convincing. Though I think she might have had to tone it down because someone who really wanted revenge would probably stand out in a special built for younger audiences. But I think her character's journey from lost in revenge to a new Ranger was convincing. As for the villains, like I said, I'm not going to spoil how Rita comes back, but her robotic body has a legitimate explanation, although why she doesn't repair certain damage she sustains over the course of the story, I have no idea. Maybe she likes the battle damage. But for once, she doesn't just feel like a comical villain. She feels like a legitimate threat. Like, you will believe Rita has crossed the line. Well, technically she crossed the line when she directly kills a ranger, but still. This Rita actually gets her mechanical hands dirty. Now, in the Sentai, which Bandora the character Rita is based on, did mix it up with the, for lack of a better term, Rangers, both while they were morphed and while they weren't morphed. And this Rita honors that willingness to fight. And while she's not Lord Zed level strength in a fight, she's no pushover. In fact, the way they defeat her is both not something you would expect a ranger to do, and also extremely brutal. I won't go into detail, but let's just say my jaw dropped. As for the returning Minotaur and Snizzard, they were passable and entertaining, and I believed they were out for blood. And the way that they were defeated, one was defeated in a classic way, the other in a practical and way equally brutal to Rita. And the putties were basically given a steroid boost. They were all done practically. The only CG they exhibited, the putties that is, was when they died, basically. Instead of flashing away, they basically fell apart. Not like Zed's putties, but in a believable fashion. You will believe that these creatures were made of clay. And if you pay attention, sometimes when the Rangers and Min hit the putties, they reacted like they just hit a bag of sand, which is very painful to do, by the way. They couldn't really make the putties too brutal, but the implied brutality was impressive. And they used pretty decent camera tricks to make up for certain limitations with the actors who are maybe out of practice, and not end up hurting anyone in the process. So we got some pretty decent morphed and unmorphed fights, and the settings where they're staged were equally good. So let's talk about the sets. We basically see a dark version of the Moon Palace from way back in Season 1. It doesn't have the classic feel of a wizard's lair. It may be bare because Rita and Zed abandoned the palace, and Robo-Rita just didn't bother putting everything back the way it was. But you could tell it was the bones of the original palace set. As for the juice bar, it was spot on. It felt like a real place. Although, at the end, one of the characters did comment that the place felt smaller. Maybe because the original set was maybe a bit larger, and they had to downsize it slightly. But they got the point across. And now we come to the crux of every Power Rangers episode, the effects. The Dinozords were all CGI. There was no suit work when one of the monsters was made to grow, and the Megazord had to fight it. It looked good, but they purposefully made the CGI worthy of television, basically. But it wasn't bad. It felt to me like a fight scene done in a video game. Like, there should have been quick-time button responses, and at that level it was passable. I kind of wish they had done some sort of suit work, but that probably would have been over budget. They put all the budget towards making Rita look good, making Snizzard, Minotaur, and the Putties look good, and bringing back as much of the original cast as they could. So I'll forgive the not great but not terrible CGI of the Megazord battle. It was just cool seeing the original Megazord back in action. And fighting in a way that the original suit actor probably never would have dreamed of doing. So yeah, overall, Once to Always was excuse me, a fitting tribute to past and present Power Rangers, and maybe this could be the beginning of a new, more mature branch of the franchise, exclusive to Netflix. Maybe we could get a series, maybe another special. Maybe Min would lead a search for a new Ranger team to take up the original Morphers and battle other past villains or new villains. They did hint that one group was still active, despite the fact that their leader was gone. I'm not going to say who, but it has possibilities. But if this is all we get, I'm satisfied. And I'm still looking forward to Power Rangers Cosmic Fury next year, or later this year, whichever comes first. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. In short, if you're a fan, this was a good special. Could have been better in places, but I don't hate it. If you're not a fan, hopefully this will whet your appetite to seek out the classic show and check it out. And if this was a one and done, then at least it was done halfway decent. This is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, whether you are 3, 13, 23, 33, 43, 53, or 93, You're never too old to geek out and watch suit monsters get trounced by giant transforming robots. And while Lord Zed may have been the most intimidating villain, Rita had the most style points. And while eventually all the past Rangers will fade into the mists of time, they'll never truly be dead as long as we remember them. May the power protect you all. And I better sign up before I start crying.